Hello there, my very good friends. We are back again with another wrestling news update today. We're going to talk WWE's long-term plans for Roman Reigns, an update on a new focus for WWE Raw and SmackDown. 2 new WWE signing targets have just been revealed, and he's back. It's CM Punk. We've got an update on the legal situation and contracts and NDAs and stuff between him and AEW. I'm Andy. Obviously, that is an inflatable microphone to substitute for a co-host, and this is the Good After News. Terrible sentence. Let's kick things off by talking about Roman Reigns. By the way, all of this one comes from this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, which just dropped, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff in there. So I figured you guys might like to learn about it. Here we are. Roman Reigns' long-term plan. What kind of direction are we going in with the Universal Undisputed WWE, whatever the heck he's going to be called after Night of Champions? Where are we going? Where are we going with Roman Reigns? Cody Rhodes is the answer. No great shocks here, but pretty interesting nonetheless. Dave Meltzer writes that as far as long-term goes, Reigns versus Rhodes is the ultimate long-term direction for the ultimate destination match. WrestleMania is a strong possibility, but this far out there are so many things that can happen. So, finishing the story, all of that stuff, WrestleMania 39, shocking loss for Cody. I think a lot of people, myself included, have fantasy booked Cody winning Money in the Bank and then using that to call his shot for a go at Roman Reigns' title once again. Maybe a SummerSlam or something like that. But yeah, here we are. Maybe they'll end up stretching it all the way through to WrestleMania XL, which is, of course, next April. That would take some very skilled storytelling, I think, in order to keep people on the hook that long. What kind of journey Cody takes. Obviously, he's tangling with Brock Lesnar at the moment, injured arm and all. And also, are people going to stay invested in Roman for that length of time with... I think the ongoing bloodline stuff with Solo in particular gives them a lot of leeway. Like, there's a lot of stuff to still explore there. Maybe some of it will happen at the PLE this weekend. But yeah, it'll take some skilled pensmanship. So obviously you hope that Triple H is doing that stuff and not the other guy. But yeah, there we go. I think obviously we're going to get that match at some point, right? You don't just have Cody Rhodes lose a match under those circumstances and then not swing back around after another heroic journey. I guess we'll have to see how it goes on television. This week's pay-per-view should probably give us a good indication of what comes next in the immediate future of these men at the very least. Let's move over to WWE's new focus for Raw and SmackDown. Younger talent. Younger people, younger faces is the exact kind of thing used here. Big internal focus in WWE in getting younger talent on Raw and SmackDown at the moment, which is in line with the way the TV show is being presented. You know, obviously there's a fair amount of veteran talent on WWE television on a regular basis, as there should be. But at the same time, you are seeing younger people kind of rise up, make a name for themselves, including a fresh batch of NXT call-ups who at the moment are just kind of getting their feet wet. Your Zoe Starks and your, who else have we got? I almost called him Trevor Lee. Cameron Grimes, of course. People like Indy Hartwell coming up. And, you know, I think there was something like 13 NXT call-ups in the draft, that kind of ballpark figure. So it's good in a lot of ways because this is something that for many, many years people were crying out for, making new stars, establishing new faces. And theoretically as well, speaking of theoretically, Theory, of course, has been a main roster fixture and he's in his mid-20s. God, this just makes me feel so blooming old talking about this stuff. But it's ultimately a good thing because if you want to attract younger viewerships, right, you want people they can relate to and people they can identify with. And if you're like, I don't know, like 20 or whatever, you might be watching this video. Who are you likelier to identify with? Someone of your age or like someone like Edge, who's great, obviously, but he's close to 50. Yeah, you want identifiable faces. Also, younger talent. If someone becomes a fan of, say, Indy Hartwell, now that she's in her early 20s, as she progresses through the years, theoretically, she could be with WWE for like 10, 20, 30 years even. So that person could then stay a fan for that length of time because they latched onto a younger talent nice and early. The youth movement is entirely positive. We don't have just Goldbergs running around burying people left, right, and center anymore. I think WWE is in a very good place when it comes to things like this. And hey, look, long may it continue. Veterans have place. Veterans are awesome. I love old, crazy people in wrestling. Sting is one of my favorite wrestlers on the planet, for example. But there's a way to use them, and there's a way to mix them in with younger wrestlers. And I think WWE generally are doing a good job of that at the moment. Let's talk some potential signing targets for WWE now, and this has been pretty interesting because they haven't exactly been scooping loads of people up for the main roster in particular, like the Nunu from Teletubbies. But they have been discussing a couple of names internally, and I think these are pretty interesting names. First one, Tama Tonga. Of course, big New Japan fixture, multi-time champion in that promotion with various different belts, former Bullet Club member, he's been babyface as of late, very skilled guy. Of course, we've had some interesting history with Tama Tonga on this channel, look that up if you dare. But yeah, he's the son of Haku, he's made a name for himself over in Japan with New Japan, Bullet Club, Guerrillas of Destiny, all that stuff, and he's someone that WWE have been tracking for a long time. We've been doing reports on him for about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. So yeah, interesting dude to bring in for sure, and I'm sure they would do some cool stuff with him should they choose to do that. Another name who might not be immediately familiar to people who are maybe just like watching AEW and WWE is Richard Holiday, who is a former MLW wrestler. He became a free agent quite recently, and he's named here in this report, in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, someone WWE might be interested in. Very thankful of his time in MLW. Richard Holiday recently overcame cancer. So he's obviously one of the most just heartwarming, nice, kind of defiant wrestling stories of 2023 and 2022. Just an incredibly resilient human being going by his social medias. A very inspiring guy, of course, and he recently made his return at an indie event as well. There's footage of him going around. It's just a wonderful human story, the kind of thing that makes you just connect with someone instantly. And Richard as well, like beyond the terrible real life circumstances that he's had to overcome, extremely talented. Very charismatic, great character guy, but very good in the ring as well. You go back to MLW and watch some of his stuff with the likes of MJF, for example. He does not feel out of place at all. And think about what kind of compliment that is when you think of like the just planet-sized personality that is Maxwell Jacob Friedman. It's great stuff. And I'd like to see WWE scoop both of these people up. Why not? They're both talented and they both deserve a big fat check. That would be good indeed. Our final story is about that guy again, CM Punk and AEW. There's some pretty cool stuff here. Well, cool's not the word, but there's some legal bits and pieces. We've reported on this stuff extensively, of course. Conversations between Punk and Tony Khan and agreements and pulled from press announcements, and we've kissed and made up and we've signed this and signed that. It's a murky, messy situation. But Dave writes in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week that there have been reports on a bunch of stuff that Punk has had to sign, like legal documents with AEW. One of them, it would be non-NDAs regarding what happened after All Out 2022, which we kind of mentioned the other day as well. That would make sense. Just a whole mess of a deal, obviously. But another thing, interestingly, are, in Dave's words, things protecting AEW legally against CM Punk walking out. And the story here is that everyone ended up on the same page at the end of all of this. So you'd imagine that would mean Punk's cool with everything. What can we say about this situation? What can we speculate on that hasn't been done 1,000 times already? Michael Hamflett puts it best. You either think CM Punk is worth the hassle or you do not. There's not really much middle ground, and one side isn't really swaying the other. So I think, for me, until he actually comes back, I'm going to take my leave from this debate and just watch these two sides smash into each other like a couple of sumo wrestlers. Collision's coming, United Center. They've not announced Punk yet. It's a whole deal. you've got to imagine he'll be there. They're calling the show the Second Coming, for Pete's sake. That's been reported across the boards. I've ran out of things to say about this guy, which I never thought would be the case, but here we are. Hopefully there's no more fights. I don't know. Who knows what's going on? It's a crazy day, and I'm kind of getting cabin fever being in this room on my own all day, so that's why I'm talking mad pish right now, and that's why this is a good time to wrap this show up. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, sharing, all of that good stuff. It really does help us, and we're very thankful for you and your support. Thank you for following us as well on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and for following myself at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for have a nice weekend. See you later.